Now, I know what some of y'all are already thinking. Okay, Blzane, all right, why are they changing expertise, right? It's a core system of 5e. It's something that hasn't been touched because it doesn't need to be. It's simple, it's clean, and why mess with it? Well, I would agree with you for the most part. After reading through the changes, it's kind of a good call. So before diving into the two variants and what they do, what the differences are in the changes, I want to talk about King's note here at the top, expertise, where he discusses why he made the changes. And there's a few things. For one, and kind of the easiest to understand, is it differs Naruto 5e from D&D 5e a little bit more, which I think is healthy. When you have a system such as Naruto 5e that has a lot of drastic changes, it sometimes feels weird to have things that are still so similar to D&D 5e. And some of you might disagree with that opinion, but that's just how I feel. I think it's fun to have things that are different. It lets it be its own unique system. And I also think the further that they push away from it, the closer it gets to possibly being able to just be its own thing, and it can fully be removed as its own TTRPG system, which I think would be really cool to kind of see it as its own fruition and its own thing. Now, barring that, some other reasons that he did this was to get rid of some of the tensions when it came to expertise in general. And, you know, if you want to pause and read through, because reading and listening to someone talking is not an easy thing, it's almost impossible for most humans to do, at least effectively, is a lot of times when it comes to doing things like contested skill checks versus like certain saving throw bonuses and things like that, or sometimes with certain classes and certain things, you really felt funneled into this situation where you were forced to pick expertise on some things, right? Like if you have nobody at the table that has expertise in, I don't know, we'll say perception, right? Because that's a pretty common one. You're going to feel pretty bad going through the campaign having not a single person that's good at that, right? So it's kind of a forced thing. Now, to be clear, this system doesn't remove the need for expertise on certain things, right? Like you're still going to want to have someone with expertise in your party, but expertise works differently where it doesn't quite use up the same amount of resources, I'll say, and I'll explain that a little bit more in depth. But the other thing as well is, and he talks about this later in the Q&A section, that again I will refer to after explaining the expertise systems, that the highest DC, which was 41, is being lowered to 35 due to these changes, which again is nice. One thing that D&D, or at least Naruto 5e rather, struggles from is numbers getting too high. It just gets ridiculous. If you've ever watched through our original campaign, you know that there was one specific moment in which our DM literally had to ban the way a certain jutsu interaction worked because it was just too strong and the numbers got too absurd too quickly. And the same thing can happen with checks because there's so many different jutsus that buff in so many different ways. It's hard to keep it all intact. So this is a healthy way to tone some of it down, make it a little bit more manageable for everyone involved, players and DMs included. Now, in these next two sections, I am going to purely talk about the new variant systems, how they work, not my opinion on them yet, or what I think could be changed or be better. Now, variant 1 is basically instead of expertise being being a flat change on your thing where you get double your proficiency bonus, instead when you become expertise in something, you get to roll an additional die. So it does talk about in here, for example, if let's say we'll keep using perception because that's the easiest thing, and your proficiency bonus is a +3. Well, if you're proficient or expertise in this case, you're going to get your d20, you're going to add your 3 from being proficient within that skill, and then you're going to, as normal, add whatever your wisdom modifier would be to that. Now, if you have expertise, instead of then adding an additional 3, what you're going to do is you're going to roll a d4. A unique thing about this system, and because that is really just a nerf to expertise, because in most cases you're going to be gaining less than what you usually would be, which again is part of their goal, is you can gain expertise multiple times into a skill. And what that does is instead of rolling a d4, you're going to roll a d6. And then if you gain another level of expertise on top of that, instead of rolling a d6, you're going to roll a d8. So that's where this system kind of gets interesting, is it allows you to stack expertise on something and get really, really good at that one skill, which I think is a very unique way to do it. And it does cap off on a D8, so you can't get up to D10, D12, again, to ridiculous numbers. It has a hard cap. The other thing to note is for advantage and disadvantage does not make you roll this die again, which can be good or bad, right? If you're disadvantaged on it, it's kind of nice because your D8 will just give you that, hey, whatever you get from it. But if you're advantaged, you don't get to roll that either. So understand that advantage or disadvantage only affects that D20 roll, not the expertise dice rolls as well. Now, variant 2 of expertise, the way this works is it's similar to the dice rolls in that it's going to scale depending on getting multiple levels of expertise, but instead of a die roll, it's just +2 for 1 expertise, +4 for 2 expertise, and then +8 for 3 expertise. Now, this one I think is interesting. I think the nice thing about this is it's consistent, right? You know exactly what you're getting. You know that, hey, I'm really diving into this skill and I'm not just going to get a 1 on my die roll, which can feel kind of bad sometimes, and it helps alleviate some of that problems. The other thing is it does, again, just start increasing your thing really, really high. Now, it does talk about, and I want to specify this for both variants because this might be something you're concerned with, it's not like you're going to have tons and tons and tons of expertise and ways to get it. You are going to have more, but it's not like you're just going to have this unlimited supply of expertise to dump. And something that it also talks about in variant 1, that it talks about in variant 2 as well, that I didn't mention just because this covers both of them, is that there's going to be class, clan features, and jutsus, or even environmental circumstances that will give you expertise. So again, there is more ways to gain expertise, but don't feel like that just means the game is now handing out expertise for every little thing that happens. Now, to top it all off with both of these variant systems, there is the universal expertise progression, which is basically just every time you hit your 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th level, you get to add an expertise on top of your usual gain an ability score and gain your feat, okay? So again, this is one of their ways of compensating of, hey, expertise isn't as powerful, but you're getting it slightly more often. So, just another way to add in there. And again, I really do like this method better because, again, it gives you a chance to have more versatility, right? You can gain expertise in every single skill you're proficient in. Or if you really want to dump them all into like 2 specific skills that your character's really, really good at, you can do that. Overall, add some variability. So now the fun part of the video. What do I like? What do I not like? What do I think needs to change? 1, overall, I love it. I think this system is amazing. As I said, it differentiated it a little bit more from D&D 5e. The one thing that I'm a little concerned with here, okay, one of the issues that Naruto 5e would run into a lot was a lot of dice. Okay, it's something you would kind of see issues with. It's one of the reasons why I talk about in a video I made a while ago that Naruto 5e works a lot better online than it does over the table, is because of the sheer amount of dice that you end up having to roll, which for someone like me is fun. I love seeing the RNG. I have that little baby gambling addict inside of me that likes to see, the jackpot hit sometimes. So adding more dice is fun, but I can obviously see it as a very easy negative. Now, that being said, if you choose to lose variant 2 rather than using variant 1 because you don't want to roll more dice, I think it's a very dangerous game to play. I actually think variant 2 is a whole lot worse than variant 1. My reason being, with variant 1, you get the choice as a player to say, okay, I can either add my 1 expertise into, persuasion and 1 expertise into perception, and then I get an additional D4 on both of those checks forever because my character has expertise in that. Or I can decide, okay, you know what, I actually want my character to be really, really persuasive, and I don't care too much about, perception. You're mathematically getting less value out of it because you're only bumping your D4 up to a D6, but you're still getting that choice to kind of go that route. Whenever you choose variant 2, it starts to feel really bad to do anything other than trying to get 3 sources of expertise on something. Okay, and while yes, that does mean you're dumping a lot of resources into one stat, if you can have a constant and consistent +8 to a check, that's so strong. And so that's why variant 2 scares me a little bit, is because I feel like you're just kind of running into a similar problem again, where now if you're telling me someone has a consistent +8 to something like persuasion, and to be clear, that +8 is not including your usual proficiency or whatever your charisma modifier might be, or if you have advantage or disadvantage on the check or whatnot, you're just getting a fat +8. I keep saying fat instead of flat, I'm so sorry. On top of it, which is so powerful. So I actually don't like variant 2. I think it discourages some of that fun, oh, I want to spread my options out, and it really makes you as a character want to just dump all 3 expertise into one. Because, think about it. If you can go from a +2 to a +4, which is doubling how strong it is, right? It would be technically the same stats-wise as putting that +2 into something else. But then you're leading up to a +8 into that check. Ridiculously powerful. +8 is so absurdly strong. It's just ridiculous. And if you're not like a numbers person and you don't know, anytime you add 1 to a roll, or anytime you add 1 to a DC, it's a 5% swing on your success or failure rate. So a +8 is a 40% higher chance that you are likely to hit whatever that DC is. And it doesn't matter. That's how the dice math works, right? If it's a DC 20 and you're rolling that, just regular D20, you have a 1 in 20 or a 5% chance. If you have a +8, your 5% chance jumps up to a 45% chance. That is ridiculously good. You just went from an almost highly unlikely, near impossible event to an almost 50-50. You literally almost created a coin flip situation purely because you did this. So, needless to say, if you want to try Variant 2, go for it. I think it's a very dangerous, not healthy system. Now, I talked about it a little bit at the beginning of last section, but I went into my rant about Variant 2. Variant 1, I think is awesome. I think it's super sick. I think it has a healthy progression of if you want to dump everything into a stat, you're not gaining as much for doing that, which I think is how it should be. Because if you think about it, this also follows the logic of how a human would progress in a skill, right? So let's say your D&D character is training their perception, all right? And you're wanting to stack expertise into it, so you're getting that D4 to D6 to D8. As a regular human, if I were working on my perception, right? You're working on your vision, I guess. Whenever you're learning a new skill or you're progressing in something, whenever you first start doing it, that's going to be your easiest time and biggest jump to make, okay? Just like in a car, right? Going from the speed of 0 to 40 miles per hour is a lot easier than going from 40 miles per hour to 80 miles per hour. Although you're increasing the same amount, it's just easier because starting from that lower amount makes it easier. There's like science laws to back that up, physics, whatever. But this lets that progression make sense. And it just, again, encourages characters to make them a little more well-rounded rather than just stat dumping. So I think Variant 1's very healthy. The one part of Variant 1 that I actually kind of disagree with and I think I would change is the advantage and disadvantage thing. The way I would personally rule it is I would actually make the advantage and disadvantage work for all the dice you're rolling, because I want you to either have a bigger buff or a smaller buff based on the situation, right? If you're trying to look through some heavy rain, I'm going to give you disadvantage, and you're not going to get a +8 from that D8 easily unless you bink the roll, okay? Whereas, same thing, if you're looking through a spyglass, so you have great perception from long distances or whatever, I think that D8 should be more likely to help you. That's the one change about it I would make personally. Maybe they did some testing and they feel like it makes it a little too powerful, but in my opinion, that's the one thing I would change. Barring that, Variant 1 is amazing. I love the change. I think it adds some fun progression. I think it just overall makes the game a little more fun. Now, as for thoughts of the universal expertise progression, it's just a system that you kind of need to have with the way these expertise systems work, because you need some way that players have more chances to get expertise. Otherwise, it just feels bad, and expertise doesn't feel like expertise anymore, if that makes sense. Now, to kind of talk about, what King wrote here, if you didn't pause and read stuff on the side, especially going over the Q&A section, one thing they talk about, again, is the DCs being lowered a little bit. Makes sense. Expertise is less powerful. And one thing they talk about later in the test document that I'm not really talking about here specifically for skill checks is they're making a lot of things that buffed skill checks be toned down or sometimes go away completely. So that is why they're also bringing the top end DC down. They're also talking about, aren't there a lot of ways to gain expertise? Can't this cause players to add D8s +8 to everything? And he talks about, no, there's not just like a billion different ways to gain expertise. They're pretty limited. Obviously, with the expertise progression system, you gain a few more. But realistically speaking, most campaigns end at level 12. They very rarely go higher. So what? That's 3 more chances of expertise. And in a system like this, 3 more expertise isn't that crazy. Unless it's Variant 2, which is a terrible variant. Don't use it, please. Please don't. I promise you were going to hate everything. But barring that, as he talks about down here, King's Note Universal Expertise Progression, he talks about how in the Kage Summit they discussed it, and I agree, I think they needed some way to gain more expertise, and that was a very healthy way to do it. It also, I think, makes level 4, level 8, level 12 feel a lot better. There are some classes that require that special feat, right? There's some classes that level 4 is ridiculously powerful because they get that feat that they've been waiting for, and it amps their character ridiculously because of how much it powers them up. It can be even something as simple as, like, let's say moderately armored, where you're now getting like 2 more AC and you get dex buffs and you get, right, like even simple feats like that can be powerful. But there are some classes that level 4 doesn't mean anything other than like a +1 to your strength mod now. That's smile. That's what you're getting. Now, if you're doing that, your character's probably not super well built to begin with, but it can happen. And this lets level 4 and 8 and those levels be a little more exciting, because now that you are guaranteed to have a skill check be stronger, it also lets you buff your skill checks without being forced to take those feats. So some people really like playing skill junkie classes. They like playing those classes where they're running around, picking locks, making persuasion checks, doing every kind of check they can. And this lets those people have a lot more fun, because they can choose to put their expertise in something else and then take the actual skill feat in something maybe they usually wouldn't be able to. So again, just opening up more and more options. And then finally, he talks about expertise titles if implemented. And he talks about how they will be colloquially known as getting level proficiency and things like that. So eventually, more than likely, they're going to implement a system where instead of just like 1 expertise, 2 expertise, 3 expertise, it gets called the different levels that you are in Naruto, like Genin, Shunin, all those kinds of things, right? So in the end, you know, you might have like a Kage level persuasion check type thing, right? Something in that realm. So just purely a title update, nothing too special on that end. So there you have it. That's the expertise changes in the test documents. And if you are worried about these and you really don't like them for whatever reason, they're still in the experimental stage. So don't worry. These are not like dead set coming in whenever the next patch comes. These are purely for people to test in their games. And honestly, please 100% test them. The point of these test documents is to get people trying them, deciding if it's worthy to be put in the full game. And I would love to hear y'all's thoughts. Comment down below if you end up trying it, how it goes with your group, if you think it's good, you think it's bad. Maybe I'm dumb and Variant 2 is one of the most solid systems ever. There's no way it's not because of how mathematics works. But maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe Variant 1 is a little too loose, right? You know, rolling a 1 on that D8 with triple expertise feels a little bad, but so be it. Roll the dice better, right? I'm the king of bad dice rolls. Don't complain to me about that. That's not my problem. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I tried to go a little more in depth on this one. Someone commented on my last video, and they know who they are, that they wanted me to go a little more in depth. And I thought, you're right. I'm a little too base level. So there's my in-depth. Agree or disagree, let me know. Subscribe if you want to know more. And I don't know if you watch these videos, King, but I'm just saying, I put a lot of time into this. You know, if your Kage Council's ever got a spot open, like, I'm here. Okay, I'm existing. But, you know, I digress. Hopefully y'all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.